And basically the Russian government scientists, they had captured the Cold War, managed to build this ICBM, the R-7, that they put Sputnik on top of it and got the first satellite in orbit in 1957. And of course the US just freaked out. The whole world was astonished the Russians were able to do this. And I think the Russians were totally surprised at the kind of public relations they got from these demands as well. And so there was a huge catch-up. The US has to put a satellite in orbit. We have to catch the Russians in the rocket gap. At the time there was a Navy program called Vanguard. And they kept having failed launch after failed launch after failed launch. This is a bunch of scientists that had never really launched a rocket before. The government gave them power money, said, make a rocket, put a satellite in orbit, we have to beat the Russians. And of course they were starting from ground zero. Now, at the same time, the Army had these German scientists that they were not sharing with the Navy. And the German scientists were like, oh, we can do that. And they actually built a rocket. And they never had approval. They built a rocket, had a satellite ready to go. And finally, after they gave the Navy one more chance, the Vanguard blew up again on the pad again. These are probably these film reels you've seen before with the rocket exploding over and over and over. That's the Vanguard program. Then they finally give the Germans their chance to launch their rocket. Of course, it goes up, first time flawless. They've done thousands of launches ahead of time. So they got the first American satellite in orbit, Spore 1. Now, around this time, von Braun met John Kennedy, which was like the third major figure in his life. And he started explaining his elaborate plans for how one day we could send people to the moon and have colonies and etc. And really inspired Kennedy, I think, to have the Americans aim for landing on the moon. Now, von Braun, all the way back in his Nazi days, had these very elaborate plans for what he was going to do after the V-2. He was going to actually have, they called it the A4. He was going to have A5, the A6, the A7. He had a whole range of rockets that were eventually planned to bomb New York. He wanted to have a giant ICBM that would be built in Germany during World War II that would actually hit New York. This was called the A-12. It was a huge multi-stage rocket. And this rocket was designed to bombard New York. It eventually became kind of the basic blueprint for the Saturn V. While the R-7, which was the Soviet spacecraft that was designed to bomb New York, became the mainstay spacecraft for sending people into orbit. And of course, as we all know, the Saturn V actually brought Americans to the moon using, the core of this kind of brilliant technology that was developed by the German von Braun. And that's the end of my German space manager. And that's